Hey, peace, everyone. Thanks for being here. One idea, lid.
Recognize royalty. Recognize it. Recognize royalty. Gotta recognize it. Recognize royalty. Like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
I can feel.
Recognize royalty.
I can see.
Recognize royalty.
Now I recognize
Royalty.
royalty's eyes.
Royalty.
I can see.
Recognize royalty.
I can love
Recognize
again.
royalty.
Now
I
I recognize
recognize it.
royalty.
I recognize
Royalty.
passion. Never just the man with the title in his hand, with the vital in his hand, with the Bible in his hand. You never just the man with the scepter and demand, with the lecture and the stand, with the vector and the candle. Can you understand the grand from the texture of the hand? Hard at work, are you hard at work? Working with the man, don't kiss the ring of royalty. Crown him king, just a thing, letting loyalty ring. Bring frankincense and myrrh and other things. As gold already blings from the highest of prizes, no sins. Recognize the king's overruling commandments with the Trinity and the power it brings when you recognize royalty. I feel it,
I can see.
yeah, I see it.
Now
I recognize now
royalty's eyes.
royalty.
I can see.
I see it.
I can love again.
Now I'm in love now.
Now
I recognize your passion.
royalty.
Recognize royalty.
All right, y'all. Yeah. Welcome to the grand finale. We made it. We're in part 7 of our 7-part series of a history in hip hop culture, or history of hip hop culture. Part 6, we spoke about the two Jamaican guys and the white girl that we said should be considered the pillars of hip hop culture. And so in today's show, we are going to be talking about how hip hop is in fact a social movement to the left, to the left, to the left. Now slide, baby. And we're going to slide into that and see, exactly how far to the left the social movement of hip hop went. And the one piece that we didn't touch on when we spoke about the Black Spades, because the Black Spades is the gang where hip hop had its birth. And when we were reading about the Black Spades, we saw some interesting things that I just want to revisit as we take a move to the left. And so now remember, it says the Black Spades officially formed in Junior High School 123 on Morrison Avenue in Soundview, originally a teenage street organization. The Spades followed the teachings of the 5% Nation, Malcolm X, and the Nation of Islam. And that's what we said kind of was the fifth element of hip hop. Um, and we spoke about that in the What's Today's Mathematics episode. But it actually goes on. It says the Spades followed the teachings of the 5% Nation, Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam, and they were influenced by the Black Panthers and the Weather Underground organization. And that's the one piece that we didn't really touch on. So we want to touch on that in this final episode and see what we can see. All right. So let's talk about the Black Panthers a little bit, since they were a big influence on the Black Spades. It says the Black Panther Party, originally the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, was a Marxist, Leninist, and Black Power political organization founded by college students Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton in October 1966 in Oakland, California. So, that's the movement to the left. That's far left, right? Marxist Leninists. It doesn't Doesn't get much more far left than Marxist Leninist, um, and a Black Power organization. And, that's even more un-American influences. That's quite an un-American influence on hip hop still. So far we're seeing very un-American influences in hip hop, mainly in the Fifth Element of hip hop, and now even in the influences and of hip hop. And I would take it that the Black Spades are were influential on were influenced by the Black Panther Party because they had members in common, maybe. Yeah, I would imagine. But they had connections somehow. It says the party was active in the United States between 1966 and 1982, with chapters in many major American cities, including San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, and Philadelphia. They were also active in many prisons and had international chapters in the United Kingdom and Algeria. Upon its inception, well, I didn't know all of that. UK and Algeria, they had the Black Panthers. That's interesting. Upon its inception, the party's core practice was its open carry patrols, cop watching. That reminds me of defund the police, doesn't it? I'm sure the Black Panthers would have supported defunding the police. Yeah, so this all seems quite un-American, as I said before. The whole Black Power thing is Marxist Leninist stuff as well. Black Power is leftist Marxist Leninist um, propaganda. That's what Black Power really is about. But let me read. It says, upon its inception, the party's core practice was its open carry patrols designed to challenge the excessive force and misconduct of the Oakland Police Department. From 1969 onward, the party created social programs, including the Free Breakfast for Children programs, education programs, and community health clinics. Um, yeah, they did a lot of programs. I think what they were, maybe they had certain programs with the gangs as well. Maybe that's the influence that they had were through these programs, trying to straighten out these young Black kids. Maybe the Black Panther Party advocated for class struggle, claiming to represent the proletarian vanguard. In 1969, J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, described the party as the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. Wow. The FBI sabotaged the party with an illegal and covert and counterintelligence program of surveillance, infiltration, perjury, and police harassment, all designed to undermine and criminalize the party. The FBI was involved in the 1969 assassinations of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, who were killed in a raid by the Chicago Police Department. Black Panther Party members were involved in many fatal firefights with police. Huey Newton allegedly killed Officer John Frey in 1967, and Eldridge Cleaver, Minister of Information, led an ambush in 1968 of Oakland police officers, in which two officers were wounded and Panther treasurer Bobby Hutton was killed. The party suffered many internal conflicts, resulting in the murder of Alex Rackley. Yeah, the Black Panthers were really, really out there. They were really out there. Government persecution initially contributed to the party's growth among African Americans and the political left, who both valued the party as a powerful force against de facto segregation and the U.S. military draft during the Vietnam War. Okay, so that's how the political left got involved, because of government persecution. And the political left valued the party as a powerful force against de facto, against the military draft. So African Americans saw them as a force against segregation, And the political left saw them as a force against the military draft, is what I would assume. Party membership peaked in 1970 and gradually declined over the next decade due to vilification by the mainstream press and infighting largely fomented by COINTELPRO. Support further declined over reports of the party's alleged criminal activities such as drug dealing and extortion. Yeah, maybe that's more of the gang connection as well and the gang influence as well. The party's history is controversial. Scholars have characterized the Black Panther Party as the most influential Black Power organization of the late 1960s and the strongest link between the domestic Black liberation struggle and global opponents of American imperialism. That's a strong statement. It says scholars characterize them as the strongest link between the domestic Black liberation struggle and global opponents of American imperialism. Right. The Black Panther Party are a very anti-American organization. And I think that the political left kind of used the Black struggle as a way of fighting against American imperialism. And I think they used hip hop as one of those tools. So it's all about anti-American things that are happening. It's an anti-American effort to really destroy America. And I think hip hop was one of those tools that were being used. Other scholars have described the party as more criminal than political, characterized by defiant posturing over substance. Yeah, so I understand the gang connection, but that connection with the political left is really interesting. I think the political left were really using them for their own purposes of fighting against imperialism. I think where the Black Panther Party started out fighting just, against racism and segregation, the political left kind of took over or infiltrated and kind of got them to be fighting now against American imperialism, and against the values of America, if you will. So I guess we're kind of seeing those connections. So we kind of see that hip hop has a very, again, I'm going to keep saying this, but hip hop has a very un-American foundation. From the fifth element of Islam to the influences of the Black Panther Party and Marxism and Leninism, all of it is just un-American stuff. It's an un-American movement, and it's even a movement to help destroy America. I think it's a left of the left wing movement to destroy America by creating, just making people feel disenfranchised and, just creating resentment among American citizens and just creating this hate for Americans to get people to have like a sincere hate for their own country. And that is so evident today. I think that is so evident today. So the movement has definitely worked. Most hip hoppers don't have a love for their country. Love for country and patriotism is not a hip hop value. It absolutely is not. No way. I think the one other piece I wanted to look into was the Weather Underground organization. It says the Black Spades were influenced by the Black Panthers and the Weather Underground organization. So I just want to read and learn a little bit about them before we do anything else. All right, so it says the Weather Underground was a far-left Marxist militant organization, first active in 1969, founded on the Ann Arbor campus of the University of Michigan. So another leftist, far-left Marxist militant organization that's influencing the Black Spades. Somehow these street gangs are being influenced by Marxist Leninist organizations. Isn't that just wild? Isn't that crazy? That's so crazy to me. Like that's the social that is why it's a social movement. You know, all along we thought the social when people said hip hop is a social movement for the youth, we thought it was just what that meant was just it was just young people creating a culture, and that's what the movement was. But that's not the movement. The movement was literally a far left Marxist movement to create dissension amongst Americans and to create a hate for America. I'm like, my mind is blown. Um, okay, so let's continue reading. It says, originally known as the Weathermen, the group was organized as a faction. Originally known as the Weathermen, the group was organized as a faction of Students for a Democratic Society, SDS, National Leadership, Students for a Democratic Society, officially known as the Weathermen Underground Organization. Beginning in 1970, the group's express political goal was to create a revolutionary party to overthrow the United States government, which the WUO believed to be imperialist. So, so the Black Spades, which is where hip hop started, that the Black Spades were being influenced by a far left Marxist militant organization, a militant organization whose political goal was to quote create a revolutionary party to overthrow the United States government. Their goal was to overthrow the United States government. And this organization is considered to be among the influences of the Black Spades, out of which hip hop was created. Isn't that wild? That's wild, ain't it? That is totally wild, bro. You know, so again, the whole racism, white supremacy, all of that is this far left Marxist movement to create dissension amongst black people who will then assist them with overthrowing the US government. You know? Isn't that crazy? No, that's wild. Well, let me continue reading. The FBI described the WUO, the Weather Underground Organization, as a domestic terrorist group with revolutionary positions characterized by black power and opposition to the Vietnam War. They casted them as a domestic terrorist group. Hip hop has domestic terrorism in its history. That's wild. I mean, that explains everything about hip hop. That explains how negative hip hop is. That explains just everything about hip hop. It explains how un-American the culture is. Even black power. The idea of black power is a very un-American idea. It just is. You know, and black power and racism and the calls and the fight against racism and white supremacy is simply a front for the real goal, which is to overthrow the US government and bring about a leftist, communist, Marxist, Leninist utopia. But let's read. The WUO took part in domestic attacks, such as the jailbreak of Timothy Leary in 1970. The Days of Rage was the WUO's first riot in October 1969 in Chicago, timed to coincide with the trial of the Chicago Seven. In 1970, the group issued a declaration of a state of war against the United States government under the name Weather Underground Organization. They declared war against the United States government. The group that was influencing the Black Spades, the group that's tied to the Black Spades, were declared domestic terrorist. They declared war against the U.S. government. First, it was the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers were a domestic terrorist group as well. and so were and so were these guys, the Weather Underground guys. They were all domestic terrorists, but these guys declared war, right? And I see that, I guess they got through the black space, through the Black Panthers, but that's all that it is. Like that's the foundation right there. That's the foundation of hip hop. The foundation of hip hop is Marxist, Leninist, left wing, communist propaganda and agenda. The foundation of hip hop is far left, Marxist, Leninist, communist effort to overthrow the US government. That is the social movement. It's a social movement to overthrow the US government. Hip hop is a social movement to overthrow the US government. Okay, okay, it's a part of the movement. Hip hop is a part of the movement to overthrow the US government. That's crazy to me. The days of rage, yeah. In the 1970s, the WO conducted a bombing campaign targeting government buildings and several banks. Some attacks were preceded by evacuation warnings, along with threats identifying the particular matter that the attack was intended to protest. And I guess this may be why they went through gangs, because maybe these gangbangers were helping them with these attacks. That's why they need to go to the gangbangers. Like, were these gangbangers really involved in these attacks? That's nuts. And hip hop was just their way of creating the dissension in people to get them to get so upset that they'd be willing to make people do these attacks. And that's something hip hop just kind of nurtures. Hip hop nurtures their hate for their country, which makes them just the proper and ripe feeding ground for these domestic terrorists. That's crazy. In the 1970s, the WO conducted a bombing campaign targeting government buildings and several banks. Some attacks were preceded by evacuation warnings, along with threats identifying the particular matter that the attack was intended to protest. 3 members of the group were killed in an accidental Greenwich Village townhouse explosion, but none were killed in any of the bombings. The WUO communique issued in connection with the bombing of the United States Capitol on March 1st, 1971, indicated that it was in protest of the US invasion of Laos. The WUO asserted that its May 19th, 1972 bombing of the Pentagon was in retaliation for the US bombing raid in Hanoi. Yo, these cats were serious. These were some serious dudes. They were attacking and bombing the Pentagon. On September 20th, 1973, an ITT Inc. building in New York City was bombed for the involvement of this company in the 1973 Chilean coup d'etat. The WO announced that its January 29th, 1975 bombing of the United States Department of State building was in response to the escalation in Vietnam. That is wild. The WUO began to disintegrate after the United States reached a peace accord in Vietnam in 1973, and it was defunct by 1977. Some members of the WUO joined the May 19th Communist Organization and continued their activities until that group disbanded in 1985. I wonder what they became. I wonder if that group still exists today in some form. Black Lives Matter. Hey, wowzers. But isn't that something, though? Isn't that something? Where all of this led us to, where all of this took us to. Last thing I want to read about. Let me read about this last thing that caught my eye. The Students for a Democratic Society, SDS. It says the Weathermen were a faction of this group. So I just want to see what they were about real quick. So let's read. Students for a Democratic Society, SDS, was a national student activist organization in the United States during the 1960s and was one of the principal representations of the New Left. Disdaining permanent leaders, hierarchical relationships, and parliamentary procedure, the founders conceived of this organization as a broad exercise in participatory democracy. From its launch in 1960, it grew rapidly in the course of the tumultuous decade, with over 300 campus chapters and 30,000 supporters recorded nationwide by its last national convention in 1969. The organization splintered at that convention amidst rivalry between factions, seeking to impose national leadership and direction and disputing revolutionary positions, among other issues, the Vietnam War and Black Power. All right, so I guess when they broke up, the Weathermen formed through their breaking up, but looks like there was a lot of dissension within the ranks. Um, but it says they were a one of the principal representations of the New Left. Let's see what the New Left is. But again, it's a social movement to the left, to the left, to the left. Now dip, baby, dip, dip, baby. Let's dip. It says the New Left was a broad political movement that emerged from the counterculture of the 1960s and continued through the 1970s. It consisted of activists in the Western world who, in reaction to the era's liberal establishment, campaigned for freer lifestyles on a broad range of social issues such as feminism, gay rights, drug policy reforms, and gender relations. Wow. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. It was all a movement of the New Left. It was all a movement of the New Left. This new hip hop movement is this whole thing about feminism and gay rights and all of that, and all of that is all left wing stuff, all left Marxist, Leninist, left wing policies. The New Left differs from the traditional left in that it tended to acknowledge the struggle for various forms of social justice, the New Left, whereas previous movements prioritize explicitly economic goals. However, many have used the term New Left to describe an evolution, continuation, and revitalization of traditional leftist goals. But they're definitely leftists. They're definitely leftists. Some who identified as New Left rejected involvement with the labor movement and Marxism's historical theory of class struggle, although others gravitated to their own takes on established forms of Marxism, such as the New Communist Movement. Yeah, I think that pretty much is the extent of our interest here. Yeah, I think we've seen what kind of confirms what we believe. The foundation of hip hop is very un-American. It's an un-American effort to destroy America. Hip hop, it comes out of a declaration of war against America. That's what hip hop is, and that's what FBA wants to take credit for. This is bigger than FBA. Hip hop is so much bigger than FBA. That's why it took a whole New York City culture, you know, in order to get this popping. It had to be the right setting. Like these organizations had to be involved in the right setting at the right place, and New York City is the right place to pop off this new left movement, because that's where they were centered, in New York. But I believe that's a part of that hip hop is a part of that movement. I believe that when they say, what I mean, that's hip hop, what I mean, that's why when they dropping bombs for real, for real. They don't just drop bombs when they in battles and when they hear a good song. They dropping bombs for real, for real. You know? So who created hip hop? Who really created hip hop? The New Left. The push for feminism, gay rights, drug reform. Those are the people that created hip hop. Those are the people that started that social movement, that went into those gangs and influenced those gangs and had people join their struggle, and may have even had them blowing up spots for them. But these are the people that influenced them and got them to move in the direction they wanted them to move. But their movement was about war against the American government. That's what the leftist movement is about, and that's what hip hop is about. That's why gangster rap took off. I mean, why wouldn't gangster rap have taken off? But that is the foundation of hip hop. That, I believe, is even bigger than the two Jamaican guys and the white girl. This new leftist movement kind of just took them over. They're small fries to this hip hop pioneering movement. The two Jamaican guys and the white girl, this talk about Cool Herc, Bambata, disco, all of that is small fries. What's at the heart of hip hop is the left, the new left, and the left and the Marxist Leninist agenda of destroying America, and just the hate that they have for the American way of life, because they think America is an imperialist state, and they have a genuine hate for America. They have a hate for capitalism. They have a hate for free markets, and that is what we're up against, and hip hop is the product of that mentality. Hip hop is the product of a hate for America mentality. Hip hop is about hating America. If you hate America, you're hip hop. It is what it is. It is what it is. But that's where we are. That's the history. That's my history of hip hop. Take it or leave it. That's my history of hip hop. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all got something to make you think. But regardless, whether or not, it is what it is. I still thank you for your time. I mean? Go back and watch it from the first one. Watch it again. Watch it again. You'll enjoy it even more, and you'll kind of put pieces together a little more now that you know the end. And you may make connections that I have not even made. Go back and click on some of them links in Wiki. It's just me cruising through Wiki. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. Hit that like button, subscribe, be notified. You done know the whole rigmarole. Yeah, man. Once again, thanks for being here. Bless yourselves. Be good. We're gonna catch you on the next one. You heard? All right, y'all. One love.
Recognize royalty, recognize it, recognize royalty, gotta recognize it, recognize royalty, like they ain't got eyes to recognize royalty.
I can feel,
Recognize royalty,
I can see,
recognize royalty,
now I recognize
royalty,
royalty inside.
royalty,
I can see,
recognize royalty,
I can love
recognize
again.
royalty,
Now I
recognize it.
royalty,
I recognize the passion. Never just a man with the title in his hand, with the vital in his hand, with the Bible in his hand. You never just a man with the scepter and demand, with the lecture and the stand, with the vector and the candle. Can you understand the grand from the texture of the hand? Hard at work, are you hard at work? Working with the man, don't kiss the ring of royalty. Crown him king, just a thing, letting loyalty ring. Bring frankincense and myrrh and other things. It's gold already blings from the highest that prizes no sins. Recognize the king's overruling commandments with the Trinity and the power it brings when you recognize royalty. I feel it.
I can see you.
Yeah, I see it.
Now
I recognize now.
royalty inside.
Royalty.
I can see you.
I see it.
I can love again.
And I'm in love now.
Now
I recognize your passion.
royalty.
Recognize royalty. Sunrise royally. Sitting on top of the world. I'm five morally. Status promise of a king for surely. Morally, we pop them things till we stop the impurity. We pop them just for recognition. Listen to the missionary on a mission with the visionary vision. Do you recognize intuition? I reel in men when I went out fishing. I'll tell you why they rocked the boat, cause they didn't understand what the prophet wrote. What's the conniption? Choose the Jews' crucifixion and refuse recognition at Sunchild's christening. In the mix, some and some insist they fix the system from malarkey back to my monarchy. Yeah, back above me. Don't soil my purple and blue, and I will recognize your royalty too.
I can feel you.
I feel it.
I can see you.
I can see it.
Now
I recognize now
royal to these eyes.
your royalty.
I can see